Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the first stage series by Sequences Cube, produced by Alabama Pictures LLC. And this time we are again kind of switching things up so that it becomes more useful as far as what we talk about in this particular part of the series. So let's kind of set up some of the changes for you. So here we go. The first thing is obviously to explore different cities around the world. And obviously, we're going to be looking for venues, which we call anchor venues, which would be the principal institutional space in a city that's kind of sustaining and transmitting performing arts culture, more canonical, that is. So I would say like opera, symphony, music, ballet, classical theater, and so forth, with some artistic continuity, of course. Needs to have that, acoustic integrity and curatorial authority. So we're not just looking at spaces that are receiving houses, though for some places that we will be exploring, obviously there are smaller towns or places like that. They don't have an anchor venue, so to speak, or maybe they're in a place that's a developing country or somewhere where the city itself doesn't have the resources or the legacy as far as international legacy is concerned. So we are not going to be biasing so much by, oh, we're just going to use these European cities or whatever. We're kind of going by in order of like how big of a music city is it and how big of a cultural city is it based on some data that we got from Spotify and everynoise.com, which basically has a little ranking of music cities. So as far as popularity goes, anyway, maybe it's listening habits in Spotify, but we just thought it'd be fun to explore some of those cities and some venues and, share the links off to those lovely performing arts spaces so that if you travel to different places, you can maybe explore some of those venues or enjoy cultural spaces around the world. And it also is a way for us to kind of create a little bit of an anthology of spaces and venues if everything goes well. So that's kind of the idea. Now we are going to immediately jump into a very well-known space. And we're going to start off with Ciudad de Mexico or Mexico City and the Palacio de Bellas Artes. And this is a very, very famous theater. And so we are going to talk about the space. We're going to talk about our gates. We're going to talk about, of course, other factors that make this venue so great. So let's get into it. We're going to start with our gates. Our gates are definitely canonical programming, institutional presence, curatorial authority, and performance infrastructure. And it passes all of the gates. And let's talk about that in more detail. So for gate one, canonical programming, this is really strong. The Sala Principal, which is the specific theater that we are talking about from that complex, is very well suited to opera, dance, symphonic music. We have, of course, programming by the Compañía Nacional de Danza, which performs Coppelia, Giselle, Swan Lake, and the rest. And of course, we also have the Orchestra de Teatro de Bellas Artes, which resides there. And there's also the Opera de Bellas Artes, which presents a full repertoire. And then there's the Orquesta Sinfónica Nacional, which also performs there as well. So there are a lot of shows that go on there, not just these kind of productions, but also different other sorts of productions, which would involve a more complicated staging. And so let's get into this. So basically, INBAL's formal operatic activity goes all the way back to 1948. So that's a great legacy. And yeah, it's a very active theater. The second gate, of course, is institutional permanence. So this is an INBL institution. It's not a privately operated hall. And this one opened in 1934 and was conceived as a national cultural institution. So that's important. And the Mexican government also received it as the country's principal cultural venue. So that's important. And then if we look at gate 3, that's the curatorial authority. This is also very strong because it is a big part of their performing arts infrastructure, like we said. And we mentioned all of the different things that are happening there. And it also has a very authentic identity as far as putting on new work. Then for Gate 4, which is performance infrastructure, the 2008 to 2010 restoration definitely updated the platform, stage machinery, rigging, stage, orchestra pit, lighting, and so forth. So this is very important because it has been designed specifically for opera, dance, and theater and orchestra. So that's a very good thing. Now, if we go into our scoring, more detailed scoring, we have our canonical density, which we're going to rate 19 out of 20. And this is one of the few venues in Latin America that has a opera, dance company, and of course, you also have your orchestra activity going on and continuous production of opera and ballet. So this is a broad national arts complex rather than just a single purpose institution. So that's something to consider, but it's still a very, very strong location for the arts. The historical continuity, we're going to give it an 18 out of 20. Of course, this opened in 1934, and it was originally constructed starting in 1904, so it took a while. And something is interesting here because it has this longevity, of course, and legacy, but it doesn't have the multi-century kind of feeling as La Scala or Teatro San Carlo or something like that. So it's a little bit newer, but it has a lot of cultural weight, and I think that's important. Now, the acoustic and spatial intelligence here, this is where we can see that the theater had a huge renovation acoustically, which was important. And the Sala Principal does have 1,396 seats. So this is just above our optimum band. We won't apply a bonus. Our optimal size is around 800 seats because we believe that offers the audience a bit more of an intimate experience. And also, it's a very convertible model. So the acoustics themselves are strong and definitely purposeful, but it's not like a world-class, like, wow, acoustical experience based on the evidence that we found and experienced. And the identity is more powerful visually than acoustically there. So that's important. Now, the artistic authority here going to give it 18 out of 20. This is not just a prestigious venue. It's great because it's connected straight into this national cultural hub system that's in Mexico, and is connected to the principal platform for major Mexican and international artists and productions. So this is very important as a heritage stage and also as a performing authority for local pieces and international work coming in. And, you know, it doesn't set global standards or redirect international repertoire or pedagogy or staging, which is why we won't give it a perfect score. And it's a major institution, but it's not quite, pushing boundaries like Beirut or Vienna State Opera or Covent Garden or Palais Garnier or La Scala in that sense. Maybe at some point it will, but yeah, as far as local and national level stuff, definitely it's definitely presenting and definitely pushing great art, but it hasn't really influenced the international zone quite as heavily. So that would be something just to note. And then for the civic-cultural centrality, we're going to give that almost a perfect score. This is a very strong dimension. And this is, of course, in the historic center of the city. This has functioned for a long time. And it's definitely an important theater. It is a very important cultural stage. In fact, the most, according to the government. And it's an arts institution, cultural symbol for the country, architectural monument, of course, and a very good performing arts house. So that's important. So if we look at our final decision, we will call it definitely a city or national anchor here. And you can see the scores together here. Now, I would say that it is a extremely important cultural venue and national level and even impacting international at some point, but it's not quite on what we would say our global tier. Now, there are some competitors in the city which some people would wonder if they could reach this level, like the Auditorio Nacional, which has an enormous cultural importance, and also it's a very large concert and event venue. But it's not quite as curated as what we would like for our particular purposes. And there's, of course, the Teatro de la Ciudad Esperanza Iris, which is also really beautiful and really amazing. And it's really historically important, but it doesn't have as much of the national company infrastructure and institutional authority as the Palacio de Bellas Artes. So that's why we mentioned that. Anyway, that's all for now. And yeah, we hope that you can definitely go visit it. Definitely it's worth going to see shows there. There's a lot of interesting new work comes out of there too. But yeah, that's why we are highlighting it today. And yeah, that's all for today.